So in this video, I'm just going to go over the physics of Beyblade. It's pretty in-depth. So, I already talked about this in my first Bey video, but I would like to get a little further into it. This is not the best lighting. Let me turn on the light. It probably did almost nothing, but I don't care. So, first of all, Beyblade. Actually, let's start with the simpler one. Why slipper deer? So, the way a Bey works, I'm just going to go very in-depth on everything. Driver determines how it performs. The thinner the tip, the more... Okay, that was a very bad example. Thinner the tip, like this one, the more stamina it has. But if you have a super wide and flat tip, such as Spiral, if you put it in attack mode, then it has very bad stamina, and because it's so wide and there's a lot of friction, it's trying to do circle around rather than a point trying to stick. So if you have a very, very thin point, it's going to have more stamina. And if it's free spinning like Eternal, but there's one driver called Bearing and a couple more where it's fully free spinning, so when it lands, the driver just sticks and you free spin. So that has a ton of stamina. It'd be like Eternal. If it's, let's say this, if this goes to the second ridge, that's going to potentially make it attack more and lose stamina. But if this goes onto the ridge, it'll free spin, and it won't lose stamina, but it will tilt more. So, back to how Beyblade works. Metal rings, they do almost nothing. You can add frames to it, like on this Bey. It's a metal ring that has a frame. And this only works on some metal rings, not all of them. You can also have weirder ones like Drago or the DB/BU ones, which are like super deep. A lot of weird things, but mainly it's just your weight. That's pretty much all they do. Unless you have something like, where is it? I cannot remember where I put that metal ring. Some of them spin, so if you land on the edge, it'll correct you. Overall, it just affects your weight. And then the layer is, it kind of just affects what happens when a Bey impacts you. So if you have these super large parts, they're going to deal a lot of impact. If they're super round like this, defense type, they're just going to kind of brush it off. And they also can determine weight. Like you can see, this has a ton of metal compared to, well, I'd say this doesn't have a ton of metal, but it does. So actually all these kind of have a lot, except this one. This is a good example. This has almost no metal on it compared to this, which has metal on the layer. So it determines your weight and how you impact them. So Vice Leopard specifically, typically this is a spring. It's supposed to be an attack type, so when it hits, it like springs down and chomps you. It doesn't do that. So I like to remove the spring, and it becomes a defense type, where when you hit it, it just goes up and absorbs the hit. So then, this driver, or all drivers, they have these little notches here on the side. That's what fit into the metal ring. 2 notches, and that goes in. If you try to put it in anyway, it would not fit till you align those notches. Then the spring, the stronger the spring, the harder it is to burst. And then you see this shape, you'll find that on your layer. So when you align the metal ring into the layer using the holes, and then the driver into the metal ring, and make sure if it's a right spin, it's got to start there. Left spin got to start there. Don't look up Prime Apocalypse. That is very confusing. It's a weird Bey. So you press it in, and you slide it to the right, or opposite side if it's left spin. And the way it stays in is the slot on the driver. When that goes in, it obviously fits. It's like a puzzle piece. It goes in, but now it can't because, it doesn't align right. Boom. And then you see there is notches, ridges. The notches collide with the ridges. The deeper they are, the more of a click you have. So you see this one has pretty decent sized ridges, but if you go to a Bey like Belial, they are much deeper, except this one has 2 broken off ones, so it's missing one, but whatever. So that's pretty much how Beyblade works. Now the physics of the battle, essentially, because the metal ring and driver, they're one part, they're not attached to the layer. I mean, they are, but they're not like one piece. So when a Bey hits you, it slows down the layer, but all the momentum in the metal ring carries forward. And when that goes forward, it'll burst you. So the harder the hit, the more you slow down the layer, and that can burst you instantly if it's a super hard hit. If it's just slightly tapping you, it's not going to do enough. And then you have bays like Bahamut or Pegasus, where if you look at the bottom, you can see the part that moves. There is a chance, really tiny chance, that if you hit this, because it's sloped, it'll move your metal ring back. It's not really meant to do that. Heaven Pegasus is meant to do that. You can see, like, if it's really hard to angle this. Pressing against the inside, and then I slightly move it. If I just slightly move the metal ring back, it'll push it back there. So not really going to happen, but it's possible. So that's how a battle works. And the more weight you have, the longer you spin it, because that's just physics. And if it's more outside, that'll keep you spinning longer. If it's inside, it'll spin less. And one thing I see both Left Burst and Beyblade Geeks, the main two YouTubers on Beyblades, constantly mess up, as they say, it has a very heavy metal ring, so it'll keep you from bursting. That's not how that works. It's the other way around. The more momentum you have on the metal ring and the lighter your layer is, that means it's super easy to slow down your layer, but the metal ring just has a ton of momentum. It'll burst you easier. So if you want to burst less often, you want to have more weight on the layer, less weight on the metal ring. That's why this is able to stay alive. Or this. If this had a ton of weight on the metal ring, it would burst all the time. And then sparking bays, they just don't burst. Technically they do, but the metal ring, this is one part. You got the layer, which is this thin piece, and then this part goes into it. And it has a sort of metal ring built in, but it's super light, and this adds a ton of weight, and then the layer adds weight, so it just doesn't burst. I have never seen one burst unless I do some crazy launch that like slams it or something. And then if you have a gimmick like this, moving blades, pretty self-explanatory that works. If you hit it, it'll absorb the impact. Same thing with, a bay like this, or Vice Leopard like I showed you earlier, or that's all my bays that can do that. Attack absorbs. So that's pretty simple. Burst stoppers, parts from the outside, you can see that goes in, and that'll stop the metal ring from moving, as if sparking bays needed to burst even less than they already do. One bay that does this, not this one because it's fake. Judgment Joker has this. What side is it on? Yeah, this side. There we go. This is normally rubber, and the way it works, because Judgment Joker is supposed to be like sort of luck based, you know, Joker and all that. If you hit it from this side, it moves the metal ring into that rubber piece, and that slows down the bursting. Judgment Joker's kind of overpowered. So that's basically how Beyblade battles work. There's not much more to understand unless you go into more parts, like how a DB bay works versus a sparking bay versus a Beyblade burst bay. Well, I mean, they're all Beyblade bursts, but you know, this is a turbo. I don't have any evolution. Actually, I do, but they suck and they burst instantly, so I don't use them. That's overall how bays work. And I'll show you a little demonstration of a gimmick, I suppose. So like I told you about this bay, how like the driver, if it goes onto it, it might be more of an attack type. I'll try to show you that. So if you launch just straight, it stays in the middle on that tip, but if you launch it near the edge and start the spin rotation, it's not a very good example because it doesn't have rubber there, so if it goes onto it, it'll just kind of go back up. But a bay that does have rubber, like if you look at the Unite driver, it's basically this but with rubber. So when it tilts, that rubber is going to make friction. So I don't have any drivers with rubber. However, I am getting the Apex Attack Pack from Hasbro, which does have rubber, so I'll be showing you that soon. Free spinning ball here. When you get hit, even though it's very high friction, so it's not a good chance it'll slide, but if you get knocked back, it'll kind of slide better rather than slowing you down, making you lose spin. It doesn't really do that though. And then you have bays that can change modes like trans, where you can twist it. Oh, twist. It doesn't twist very well. It's hard to show you. This one's the easiest example. Spiral. So that part goes in, and the wider you are, the more you attack. So that's generally the physics of Beyblades. I could show you more, but I don't need to, because you can look that up if you want. Bye.